My juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the ACC tournament, and then next week will be the NCAA tournament. I'm Joe Giglio, joined by Wolfpack great Scott Wood. Scott, this is, like, even for you, man, you got to say that this is the best week of the year, right? Best 2 weeks of the year?
Yeah, man. It's different since I've stopped playing, but it's just a lot of fun because anything can happen. I think that's the first thing. I think also it's in the right spot. It's in Greensboro, which is the right spot for the ACC tournament. And then it also helps that my squad has good buzz around them and it's had a good season. I think that also helps.
So NC State ends up as the 6th seed, 12-8 regular season ACC record. I think that exceeded most people's expectations. Could have been a little bit better, obviously losing the last 2 games, lose to Duke, lose to Clemson. But when you look at the final standings, Clemson's the 3rd seed. Duke is the 4th seed. So it's not like you lost to Jabroni Central.
No.
But you come in on their first losing streak of the season, actually, but had the weekend off. I think that will help them. How do you look at the weekend off, and how do you look at maybe their mindset coming off of those 2 losses as you get ready for Wednesday night's game? They will play the winner of Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. Virginia Tech and Notre Dame play on Tuesday. VT obviously won this tournament last year and have many of the same parts, but not all of them.
Yeah, I'm not always a huge fan of taking that long a time off before playing, but I think it also does help. They're going to be really hungry. They've got a really bad taste in their mouth right now with losing 2 straight games. For granted, they are. I still think they're 2 really good teams that we lost to. So I think they're going to be ready to play. I think it's going to be critical that they get off to a fast start. I think the nice part is I think they'll have a good crowd behind them. I think there'll be a lot of NC State fans there pushing them on. So I'm highly, highly interested. I can tell you that.
9:30 scheduled start, which means probably 9:45-ish. I believe you played in the game with the latest start that I ever covered, the Kansas Sweet 16 game. I think is the latest start that I've ever covered on East Coast time.
Is that technically East Coast time?
Well, we were in St. Louis, but gosh, it was so late. My deadline was like,
hey,
I think we started after my deadline.
We had to travel to Stanford to play a game, and I couldn't even tell you what time we played. At 5 o'clock.
But I was going to say that game was not at night, even by it's a 3 or 4 by there, so it was like a 7 o'clock start for us.
But it does feel weird. I don't think it'll be as big of an issue for them because I feel like we've had a lot of 9 o'clock games
of late, for sure.
So I think they'll be fine. But again, the rest worries me, but I think kind of the bad taste in their mouth and what has transpired over the last, couple of weeks, I think will be enough fuel for them to be ready to go for that game.
My mindset, Scott, heading into the ACC tournament is I believe there are 7 ACC teams with a chance to make the NCAA tournament. I think only 6 will. I don't, if I'm NC State, I don't want to lose on Wednesday night. I think there is a way for them to get in if they do, but that's not the kind of bubble luck you want NC State to have. I think between State, Clemp, and Carolina, I think only 2 get in. And I think, Carolina losing to Duke on Saturday. Now, their big wins this year, Carolina is the win over State, and they have the win over Virginia, but they're lacking the win over Miami that State has. They have a win over Clemson too. Clemson, we talked about this on the last episode. They have some flags on their resume. I just feel like between those 3 teams, only 2 will get in. You just want to make sure you do what you can do so the committee knows, hey, we mean business. Also, something to watch tonight, Scott. Furman. Furman's in their champion. I'm serious though. No, what I'm saying is State has a win over Furman.
I agree.
Just like St. Bonaventure helped your team get in, Furman being in the field actually helps NC State. So there are some things on the periphery to watch that don't involve the ACC tournament. But I just thought that's the way I look at it for those three teams.
Yeah.
The music's going to stop, and there's only going to be chairs for two of those teams.
And I don't disagree with you. I think for State, though, it's just tunnel vision. All right, we've got the first one, and for me, you have to win the first one, okay? And then the next step is, all right, and it's almost comical because we're all in the same little bracket. So it's like Carolina is right there, State's right there, and Clemson's right there. So if I had to guess, Clemson is licking their chops saying, I want to play State again so that I can get another quality win. So they're all kind of right there. But I think for State is they just, I mean, it's the old cliche. It's one game at a time. You got to win. You got to win that one to get to the next one. And I think that first game is huge. They got to win that first one. And then all of a sudden you get Clemson, who has got State twice now. So there's more. There's some bad blood there on how they lost at home on senior night. So it's a really good opportunity for NC State to get hot here, because I think that's another big piece is nobody wants to see NC State just be there for one round. You know, they want to see NC State advance and do the same thing, get hot at the right time, and then take it on into the tournament play.
Yeah, State as the 6th seed is, if you think about it, on Thursday, they would, if they win on Wednesday, they would play Clemson, who is the 3 seed. They're in that bottom bracket. You mentioned Carolina as the 7. Carolina would be Virginia. You know, if I'm State, I'm looking at this. This is actually a tougher draw than if Carolina had won and beaten Duke. State would have been the 7, and I think State actually would have been better off being the 7, just looking at it. But
I agree. And I looked at it the same way too. I was like, I think I would rather play the teams that are coming to get me as a 7 seed than a 6 seed. Yeah. But hey, too, it's a better look for State. And regardless of where we're seated, you have to win this first game. You just got to get it done. And then I also, you know, you don't overlook people, but I also feel like where Carolina is, you could very easily overlook. Who is it? Is it Florida State and Georgia Tech?
No, it's Boston College and Louisville. And, you know, the way the Boston College has played down the stretch, you know, they beat Virginia. They've had some wins, so they could pop on Wednesday night as well. I don't know. This is something from a gambling perspective that I've kind of looked at, Scott. Obviously the teams playing on Tuesday aren't that good, but I wholeheartedly believe the teams who are in that building and get a game the next day, they have an early advantage. Now, by 9:30, I don't know for NC State, but, you know, you're Boston College, you're feeling good after beating Louisville, and you get Carolina, I think that's an advantage. Playing in the building, being familiar with the building, I feel like that's an advantage. I don't know if you give any credence to that as a player.
Yeah, I mean, it's all feel, man. And that's kind of the scariest part. You catch a team at the right time in this tournament, all of a sudden, bad team starts playing good. I mean, it's about as random as it can be. It could be something about the building. It could be something about somebody's confidence. It's all about who gets hot. And I think that's why for NC State, look, let's just focus on this first one, try to make a little bit of a run and make some noise in the ACC tournament, because I think it could propel them to have a really, really good run in the NCAA tournament, because I feel like they've got the guard play. A lot of teams haven't seen that we're going to play at the NCAA tournament wouldn't have a DJ Burns, so they're going to have to kind of figure him out. And that's honestly one of the best parts about playing in the NCAA tournament is, guys, you haven't seen these teams. Like, it's just refreshing that now all of a sudden they gotta do a new scout. Coaches are trying to call coaches in the ACC, like, hey, give me the scout on these guys. But you haven't seen them. That's honestly the most refreshing part is, God, I'm so tired of playing these ACC teams over and over that know you so well and know what to take away. And now you finally get something that's free.
Running to my spot on the floor before I get to my spot on the floor, right? Like you say it, and I see the smile on your face. It makes me think of the San Diego State game when Mark can literally sit up there, hold up the C, and call corner, and all of a sudden you're wide open. You're like, oh, that hasn't happened over the last 16 games back when you were in school. Played 16 in the ACC. You know what, Scott? And you're not going to like that I say this way, but this is the first time. So I graduated from NC State in 97, and that's the year actually Herb Sendek takes this group that included Justin Gainey and Osh Benjamin and CeCe Harrison, Danny Strong, and they basically played every minute of the tournament. They played 4 games, 4 days. They played every minute of the tournament, but they played Carolina, who, my goodness gracious, they had Anton Jameson, Vince Carter. I mean, they were a ridiculous team. Shimon Williams ends up getting hot in the second half. They win, but 07, the 07 team kind of does something similar. This is the first time probably since one of Jules's teams where I thought, okay, NC State actually has a chance to win the tournament. Like I'm not trying to disrespect you, but I didn't go into the open tournament thinking, okay, NC State in 12, your best team. I didn't think, okay, I think State's gonna win the tournament, right? Like that's a year you guys had struggled with Carolina, you had struggled with Duke. They both had really good teams. Miami had a really good team. Far State had a really good team. So I didn't look at it like you were on even footing with everybody. In this tournament, I think it's truly the first time, probably since 03, that or even 04, because 04 actually Jules had a better team. I thought, all right, you know what? There's nothing preventing NC State from winning this tournament. Now having to do the 4 games, 4 days, being in that 6th seed, it's a little bit difficult. But I believe NC State has as good a chance as pretty much everyone not named Duke and Miami, certainly, to win this thing in Greensboro this week. How do you feel?
I mean,
First of all, do you feel disrespected that I said that? Let's get that out of the way. So we're not like 20 years later, you're coming at me like, oh, remember that time you were a jerk to me?
It's my competitive nature. You're going to get that out of me regardless. But I would say my 12th year was probably more a pleasant surprise. And then I'd say my 13 year, from a talent standpoint, we probably had the weapons to make a run. But
yeah.
But anyway,
the wrong draw, lost to Miami. He played well against Miami, but lost to Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, we matched up well against Miami. They just played better than us. But anyways, but I'd say again, it's just weird because it's typically you can go into an ACC tournament and say, all right, we've got 2 teams that are going to be your heavy hitters and they're going to throw some haymakers. There's legit maybe 5 teams that can make a run and win this thing. Like I know you didn't agree with my statement. I think Clemson's a scary team. I think State's a scary team. Miami's a scary team. Virginia. I think Carolina is still more than capable to make a run.
Virginia is not scary. But yes, you have talked me into Clemson.
And my unpopular take will be that I think Carolina will beat Virginia. But and that's just but again, these are teams that I think, I mean, you go from the top 7 and you legitimately probably have a case that they could get to the championship.
And Boeheim doesn't care about this tournament, but that wackadoo zone, I mean, Miami could go cold against that zone. I mean, anybody can go cold against that zone. It happens.
And it's we've said it multiple times. It's all about the matchups, man. Like I never felt like Clemson was a great matchup for NC State. I think they're capable to beat them, but I don't think it's a great matchup. I think Carolina is the last team that Virginia wants to see, and I would agree. I think that Syracuse and some of those teams can play ugly enough to make somebody struggle against them. Same thing.
How about Pitt, Scott? They had a chance on the last day of the regular season to be the number 1 seed. They end up losing a 2-point game and end up being the 5th seed.
Yeah.
Do you think that screws with their mentality at all, or does it give them a little bit more fuel to the fire? Because I actually like their draw too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the weird part. It's like, dude, outside of Miami and maybe Virginia, is anybody a lock for the NCAA tournament right now? So I feel like everybody's kind of
Duke is.
Duke. I feel like fighting for their lives. It's like, all right, we got games.
Yeah, I actually think Pitt is a lock too. I take it back. I think they are. I think it's those 4, and then like I said, between State, Carolina, and Clemson, I think 2 more get in. I think the league ends up with 6. Yeah. Now, last year going into Brooklyn, I wouldn't have said Virginia Tech was going to win it. They did. They made a run, and they knocked Wake Forest out. And that was, that was the damage from a team kind of coming from the back of the pack and getting the automatic bid. And of course, Virginia Tech, I think, ended up being a 12 seed.
I will say this. No offense to anybody on the first day, but there is nobody on the first day that's going to win this tournament. And I will stand by that.
Yeah, I don't see I mean, Louisville is a corpse, and then Notre Dame, I think, popped for Bray's last home game. I think it's fair to say that was probably their last hurrah. Florida State is obviously talented, but they just haven't been engaged long enough this season to make a solid run. On that top half of the I like Miami. I mean, that's my pick. I think Miami is going to win this tournament. But Duke, I was impressed with the way Duke played on Saturday, but these aren't vintage, teams that you played against. And I'm not trying to be like the old guy here. I'm just trying to say that's part of my mentality of I think NC State has as good of a chance to win the tournament as they've had at any point in the last 20 years. I think that's fair to say.
I also think that's where the landscape of college basketball as a whole has changed. Have we had anybody in the last maybe 3 years that has just been like, okay, this guy is going to win the NCAA tournament. This guy is going to win his conference tournament. Yeah. It's just been a constant shuffle. That's just what it's been. And that's just the landscape of basketball just evolving through the transfer portal and all the other stuff that's being thrown in.
That's the other part of this. And, quite frankly, I would like to see NC State, Pitt, Miami have the success that they did in the regular season. I would love to see them make the run that they do, make the same type of run in the postseason, because I think, Scott, one thing we barely talk about with the ACC, as we've tried to diagnose, hey, what's wrong with the ACC? Yes, of course, you have the brands in Duke and Carolina who are not up to their normal standards, even though I think Duke is a perfectly acceptable NCAA tournament team. And I think Duke has a puncher's chance this week in Greensboro as well. But they're not at their normal standard, right? So, but what we're not talking about is NIL and the transfer portal. You have to play that game correctly. And NC State did this year. They did. I thought, along with Pitt and along with Miami, they made the right moves. They got the right guys. There was no guessing this year for State in particular. There was no hoping somebody would go from, the Alondis Williams. There was no guessing, oh, this guy averaged 5 points at Oklahoma. He's magically going to average 18 points and be the ACC Player of the Year. I joke with Steve Forbes about that all the time. Like, Forbes' point, though, is he feels like the success stories you see are major to major. So like a Jarkel, who has an Ole Miss, you don't have to guess. When he comes over, that he can handle the type of grind and the level of competition. But, I look at the rest of the league and you go, you got to get on the stick here. You got to stop acting like, NIL doesn't exist. You got to stop acting like the portal is a bad word. It's not. It can make your team better.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a different day and age. And I think, again, the old school guys don't want to hear it, but the days of seeing somebody start to finish at the same university are limited now. This is the type of thing that we're going to see. It's almost like free agency. It's like, all right, can I get a guy for a 2-year loan that's going to, help my program? Or a guy like Jarkel that you only get for a year, but leads your team to have great success. So again, I just think it's going to be that constant shuffle. I think teams are going to find really good formulas on the style of players that they want, as well as how much money that's got to be set aside for them. And again, it's kind of like you said, the schools that are going to get behind this and just realize that, hey, this is what we got to deal with, are the ones that, are going to figure it out. I remember before we even had a transfer, I went into Coach Keats' office and he lays a book on my lap and it's this thick. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And he said, this is all the transfers within the last week. And it's just like,
the last week.
Just the last week. And it's the crazy part about it is, there's going to be probably, 1,000 might be dramatic, but 500 dudes the first day, the tournament ends that are gone. We're looking for new teams, new homes.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I've been watching some Missouri Valley games. I've been watching some other games, Southern Conference. I'm not going to lie to you. I've kind of, mentally taken some notes. You're friends with Levi. I'm friends with Levi. That doesn't mean they're going to take our scouting report, but there's no harm in saying to somebody, hey, have you checked out, or, to Kevin, hey, have you seen this player? And then they could at least get him on the radar.
That's my guy. He's at
Which one?
Stetson, Jalen Blackman at Stetson right now. He's averaging like 18 as a freshman. 90
Okay.
free throw line, shooting the absolute leather off the ball, baby.
Okay.
Freshman of the year in the conference. Stetson, let's go get him.
That's what I'm saying. Like that poor Stetson has no chance of keeping that player.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And how things are going to change and have changed. All right, before we get into our final picks here for the ACC tournament, you shot well at the Greensboro Coliseum, and it makes a little bit of it doesn't make some sense to me because it's a bigger building, and I don't think of it as a great shooter's background. But maybe you can prove me wrong. Maybe the green seats were appealing to you. Why did you shoot well in Greensboro, and do you believe in the whole background and the deep background being an issue? I'm thinking probably St. Louis is one of the bigger gyms that you played in, the football stadium in the Sweet 16. I'm trying to think, maybe Syracuse. I don't know if you shot well up at Syracuse or not, but Syracuse, St. Louis would be some of the ones that I'm thinking of that you played in, the bigger ones. But Greensboro, honestly, you had some really, really good games in your career in Greensboro, and I'm curious what was appealing to you as a shooter about the Greensboro Coliseum.
Honestly, I think it just I don't think it was anything appealing. It was just my freshman year when I made like second team all ACC tournament and we made a little bit of a run and we weren't that good. I think it just gave me the confidence for like the next couple times I played there. Like this is my spot now. And then it was also we played UNCG and I had a really good game against UNCG. And it's just I think it's just the confidence. Same thing with Florida State. I mean, my freshman year I went bonkers, and the rest of the time, dude, I promise you, if I stepped inside the door, I could probably throw a ball somewhere and it'd go in a basket. It's just how basketball players are. You get a little bit of confidence in that, the comfort that, hey, you've done it here, you've done it at a high level, and the light kind of when the sound buzzes and you're stepping on the court, it's like, okay, I've done this already before. So I think that's just kind of what it was, man. I just had so much success early on there that it just kind of led into it. And then everybody's talking about it. You're in the media and you're like, oh, last year, you made the second team all ACC and shot 65% from three. And I think they're basically hyping you up and reiterating, hey, you played really well here. So
wait, so I get credit for that. You like to blame me for Carolina's performance against you, but now I get credit for you shooting well in the Greensboro Coliseum.
Wanted to ask me about, how's it feel to lose to Carolina? So now I have all the negative thoughts already.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Well, it was somebody, but
that was not me. Get out of here.
All
right, let's get a pick here. Let's what do you got? What do you have State doing? And then give me two teams who you like to be in the finals.
I don't want to pick. I really don't want to pick. Do I have to pick? You go first. I really don't. I can't.
All right. I actually like State to beat Virginia Tech. I like them to beat Clemp. And then I have them losing Friday. Because I hate Virginia, which means Virginia will be in the final. I got Miami and Virginia in the final. How about that?
All right. I agree. I like.
And I got Miami winning. I like Miami. I said that Norchard Amir kid. My goodness gracious.
You've been talking about him since we've started this podcast.
I saw him in person, right? I got people mad. I got people mad at me this week now about John Shire, and I'm like, guys, when I see things in person, that's what I go by. And when I saw Duke in January and they were a mess, they've figured some things out. To me, that's coaching. I thought Saturday night he pushed every right button too. So when I see things in person, I stick with them. That was Amir. So I'm going to stick with Miami. I don't think Bensley Joseph is going to be taking big shots for Miami.
Roster. See, I watched him in person, just absolutely light us up, and you weren't there.
Oh, Clemp.
Yeah.
Yeah, you. That's there's nothing wrong with that. It's what you saw, right? So
prediction. I'll take State. I agree. I think Notre Dame's going to beat Virginia Tech though. So I'm going to say
okay.
They're going to bring Bray to a single victory and then lose.
Okay.
I like the revenge game against Clemson. I think, again, bad taste in their mouth. Go ahead and knock that out. However, I disagree. I think UNC is going to beat Virginia.
Okay.
I think it's going to get a little bit saucy there. I do not want to touch the bottom bracket anymore. I'm going to move to the top, and I'm going to take a dark horse, and I like Pittsburgh or Duke to come out of the top.
Okay. Whoever wins that game, you're saying?
Yeah,
because they would play Thursday. I like it. All right. We'll figure out what happens in Greensboro. Then we'll talk again next week. Hopefully not on Selection Sunday, but I have faith that NC State will be in the tournament. So we can talk next week, Monday, same day. We'll talk about where NC State is headed for the NCAA tournament. Going to enjoy this weekend in Greensboro, though. Appreciate everyone who has checked in. Our traffic this month has been really, really good. So appreciate you guys doing that for us. We actually beat Adam Gold this month in the Canes Corner podcast, Scott Wood. So you've got that going for you. You got that over Mike Glennon. Make sure you tell him that the next time you see him. Appreciate everyone.
Golf with me. He won't even play golf with me.
I know. I tried with him too, and I think we'll get all four of us out there. Don't worry. We'll make it work.
That's all I want. As long as AA just doesn't give me bad news this weekend, we'll be good. They've stuck to us one too many times, so they need to be nice.
I know. We'll figure it out. You can catch all of our episodes on WRALSportsFan.com. I've put them on YouTube. That's right. YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. Watch all of our episodes. Who do you think is going to win the ACC tournament? Comment right here on the YouTube link. Right there. You can do it. I have faith in you. Appreciate everyone for all of our, again, great month. Going to enjoy the ACC tournament. If you see me down there, I'll buy you a beer. How about that? Just say I saw it on YouTube. Perfect. Love it. See you guys next week.